Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Oh wait, that's Winter's line. Welcome, or day 58 of the winter summer. Uh,
Yeah.
today we are playing Click to 10, which is an incredibly underrated, like this really good psychological horror visual novel that I think you should check out. It's a really good game. But
Can you
if you
click next page?
do you wanna go to the next part already?
I mean, it's only the next part. There's a few more sections.
Yeah, I guess we could get the first one out of the way. I mean, this is just the prologue anyway, zero.
Yeah, it's kind of
So,
boring.
so I guess boom, there we
Now
go.
you
Now
can
we're
really capture a lot from this one.
yeah, now we're on part one, and I mean, it's not really apparent now, but this this is like the start of everything. You're not really gonna see the overarching themes until we get towards like the middle, I would say, because that's
I mean,
when
even
things
like the
start to make
latter
sense.
half
Well, yeah, I mean that's where it
to
really
the not
starts
as
clicking.
educated.
Yeah, that's where it really starts to click in. But you start getting signs around part four, I'd say. And
Eh, if you're really paying attention, like really paying attention, maybe like a third of the way through.
no, I'd say it's around part four. I
Am
mean,
I stretching a bit? Because I mean, there's like that one giveaway. There's like that one line in the second part, and then like on the third part it like reiterates on that like one part, but like it's
well,
it's
there's
very
there's
cliche or niche.
foreshadowing.
It's very niche.
There's foreshadowing in the first few parts, but it's really part four, I'd say.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I've only read through it once, so like I never reread it from like a fresh point of view.
Yeah, I mean, I really like this game, so I've delved into like the themes and all that a lot.
Hmm.
So I know a good bit about it is the thing. Which is why in my I suppose you could say expert opinion, it's part four where like all the really good theming comes in because
Yeah, that's fair.
man, I wasn't expecting to really give it out this early, but like the main idea of this game, like the main theme, is that it's about life. It's about living your life and what that means.
One thing I want to say real quick. One thing I really do like about this game is that the main character from the prologue and the first part come together in the end.
Well, okay, you probably didn't catch that, but
Or did I
the
spoil
thing.
that?
Well, no, I'm saying you probably didn't catch that, but the thing is, they're symbolic. Those characters are symbolic because they're actually the same. They're the same character, just different versions.
The character from the prologue and the one in part one.
Yeah, in fact, all of the
But how
characters
can?
are just different versions of the same character.
Well, I don't think that's the case because the first one and like the prologue character and the part one character combine at the end.
Well, I can see where you're coming from, because, yes, they physically combine at the end, but symbolically, all of the characters, all
It's
of the
just growth from the
protagonists,
original.
yeah,
I
because,
see. Okay.
I mean, I get how you think that, because this game is very abstract, so you really gotta, dive into it to really understand it, but, yes,
Hmm.
from, a visual, physical level, yes, the prologue and the part one protagonists combine in the end, but in the lore, they are all the same. But that's like the deep lore.
But I mean I guess also I'm a little biased because of the spinoffs
Yeah, yeah, I understand that.
where the main or like so in the spinoffs like the MC it's not the character from the prologue but it's like the other ones
Mm-hmm.
that join together with the character from the first part.
Mm-hmm.
It's really weird, honestly. I don't like I don't like what the author did with that
Yeah,
with
well,
those
those aren't
spinoffs.
canon, so
Yeah, I'm glad they aren't canon because
it's
that
like
would be
Fate.
really weird. Yeah, like Fate.
Yeah, it's like Fate where you got like the two canon ones. There's two, right?
Um,
There's like
yeah,
there's
yeah.
Fate and then there's the prequel.
They're all okay.
But then there's
they're
like 10
all
billion other
canon.
bullshit things out
Okay,
there.
there's okay. Let me get this Fate explanation
Okay,
real quick.
you're more the Fate
Okay,
expert.
so there's Fate Stay Night, which
Uh-huh.
is the one I prefer to watch first because that is the story as it's told. That is in the visual novel, the Saber route.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's the prequel Zero, which is his father's experience.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's the Rin route, which is Unlimited Blade Works. So, and then there's Sakura's route, which is Heaven's Feel, which is the movies.
Okay.
Any other Fate is a spinoff.
Yeah. That's
Any
what I'm
other
talking
one.
about. But yeah,
There's
isn't
four canon ones that are part of the visual novels. Oh, and Zero. I don't know if Zero has a visual novel. Not quite sure,
no, I'm
but
pretty
I
sure that
know.
like the two visual novels are Fate Stay Night and Fate Zero. I think.
Okay,
And I'm pretty
if
sure
that's
like doesn't
true,
Fate Stay Night have like the other routes which are the other.
yeah, that's what I'm talking about. So,
Yeah. Like that's what
Stay
I'm talking
Night, the
about.
visual novel, is all three routes,
Yeah,
which is
because I'm pretty sure how it is. It's Fate Stay Night, which is the three routes, and then Fate Zero, which is the prequel,
yes, that sounds right.
and then the
Any other
10 billion
Fate
bullshit spin-offs that
is
exist,
not
which aren't
canon.
canon.
It's
Like,
crazy.
no, you don't understand how Astolfo fits into the lore.
Dude, it's crazy. He doesn't. Which and then even then, that's what I was told. So like let me fact check myself real quick. I'm like 90% sure that's how it is. What Fate series are canon? Let's see. Uh okay, wait. So yeah. Okay. So all are canon, but simply alt timelines.
Well, only to one timeline matters, so
True. I think that's according to the Reddit task force.
only one matters. So, anyways, back to
Because like
Click to
it's kind of
10.
like a Marvel. It's kind of like a Marvel thing where you have like the like universe like
Yeah,
4 billion
who
or
cares
whatever.
about multiverse shit? Who cares?
Yeah, I
Let,
think
let's get
that's
back
what it's
to
like. I'm
let's
not
get back
sure.
to Click to 10.
The thematics of Click to 10. My bad.
Yeah, that's what the video is about. So, I mean, that's what I was talking about. Like, you have symbolically they're all the same because as I was saying, like the main theme of the game is it's a representation of life and what it's like to go through life. And there's a lot of symbolism with how the number that is on the screen and the number of the part is representative of you, the player. And there's like a duality to it because the number both exists as itself, but it also exists as 10 times itself. Like, for example, 1 here represents 1, of course, but it also represents 10.
Can you show us two?
Yeah, we could go to part 2 right now. There.
Yeah.
Like, and for example, 2 here represents 2, but it also represents 20. And the reason I say that is tying into the themes of life, because what the story of Click to 10 is about is going through life. And that's why in the first couple of parts, you really it really focuses more on, I would say, the 10 times aspect of the number, because the number itself doesn't have much importance yet. Because what the numbers represent are ages. Because if you think about it this way, the 2 represents you, the player, at 2 years old. But it also represents the player at 20 years old. But at 2 years old, you really don't have a grasp of the world yet. I mean, do you remember anything from when you were 2 years old?
Yeah, actually.
Wow, you got good RNG, because I
No,
sure don't.
it was dude. It's crazy. So, like when I was about 10, I want to say, I used to actually have it photographically, where I could physically see the memory,
Mm-hmm.
and the memory was of me sitting on my old house's steps, playing with a bunch of dogs.
Uh-huh.
And I told my parents about it because we didn't always. So like we lived there, then we moved, and then like 6 years later we went back there.
Mm-hmm.
So I told them about it. I was like, "Yeah, I was on these steps playing with a bunch of dogs," and they're like, "Well, we never owned dogs. How could that have happened?" And then my dad was like, "But wait, when my brother lived here 4 years ago, or like whatever, like however old I was, like
Mm-hmm.
he was like, yeah, they had dogs here, and I know you did play with them for a bit. So like, however long he said ago it was, I was 2.
Mm. Okay, then.
So I did get the crazy RNG,
Yeah, you got the
but
crazy RNG.
it's no longer photographic. But now I know, like I still know it existed, and I still know like what it was.
Okay. Yeah, you just
So
got the good
the answer to your
RNG, I
question is
guess.
yes, but yeah, just crazy RNG.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I say there's like foreshadowing in the first couple parts. Because you really don't. Most people, they're really, when they start to have memories that they form, is at around 4 years old. Because that's when around when it happened for me too, was 4 years old. And but if we go to like the 10 times version of the number, like that's why it's more important, I would say, for the first few numbers, because if we go to like 10 and 20, that's when a person is still young, just like the game. You've just started the game. You don't have much experience with it yet. You haven't really gone through what this game has to offer yet, just like you haven't gone through what life has to offer. You're still learning, you're still getting new experiences. And that's
Is
why
there any
it's,
way to go back to part one just so I can relook at it in any way?
no, you can't,
Or
because
is it just like life, how you can't go back? Like you
exactly
can't turn
that
back time. Gotcha.
that's part of the thing, is like
I
you
don't know.
can't.
I definitely agree with like being part of the thing for thematic reasons, but I feel like from a gameplay perspective, it's a little weird.
Yeah, I guess so, but
Yeah,
it's meant
I
to be
feel
a
like with
really
any
abstract
story,
art piece, is the thing.
I guess so.
Mm. It's like it challenges you to think about what
Hmm.
is really being said here, and it doesn't
Right.
tell you, is the thing. And that that
I think
that
we're
can
ready for
turn
part
away,
three.
yeah, that turns away a lot of people. But if like you really want to get into it, you'll find that it's like a really amazing piece. But yeah, let's go to part 3 now. Boom.
Hmm. Now I'm gonna be honest. This part really spoke to me.
Didn't
Not my
he?
favorite. Not my favorite by any means. Not my favorite.
Okay.
But it did have a few good parts. Like the way, like, so at first, like, it wasn't really much, but then how it, I'm gonna spoil a little bit here, but the way, like, half of it turned into what the character in part 8. Like I was like, oh my god,
Mm.
that's incredible.
Yeah, yeah, I can see where you're coming from with that. I mean, part three definitely feels like a more transitional part, I would say.
Oh, it 100% was. But the
Yeah,
foreshadowing to part 8,
yeah,
that's what really got me. I didn't really appreciate it until I got that far. I was like, oh my god, that was in part 3.
yeah. I mean, a lot of what part three is about is foreshadowing, is what I would
Oh
say.
yeah,
Yeah, that's really what it is about. It's setting up a lot of stuff, and
yeah, and
in doing that,
like
it
you,
kind of gives up a lot of what it could do on its own. But I feel
that's why
like,
I said it's not really my favorite, but it's the
hmm
one that like it's the one you go back to like at the end, like I said, and you're just like, oh my god,
yeah,
that's
but I
really
still
well
feel like
written.
it fits into the story well. Is what I'm gonna say.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
hmm But yeah, I mean, like, you know, a very transitional period, but I feel like it's really doesn't have a lot on its own, is what I'd say. It's just it more so helps the other parts be better. So I think that warrants us already going to part four, because that's where like the really big stuff starts to happen.
The are you sure that like yeah, I agree a lot of big stuff happens, but I feel like part 7 is the big like climax.
I mean, yeah, that a lot of stuff happens in part seven, but I'm just saying, like, if we go to part four, we got a lot to talk about there. It's
Yeah, we should probably save that. I
wow,
don't really want to spoil it.
wow. Part four is amazing.
Part 4. Oh, you changed to part 4. Yeah, I didn't notice.
Yeah, we're on part four now. Part four is
Dang.
really where, the whole thing starts to flip towards the single digit more.
It tied up all the loose ends in the original parts, which I like.
Mm,
I like when stories tie up the original loose ends earlier on.
yeah, yeah,
Like it creates those beginning questions, gets you hooked in, then it answers it, but leaves more.
yeah,
So it
yeah.
makes you want to keep reading. Like it gives you your answer, but you want to keep going.
I mean that's kind of like life too, which is what it's trying to
Exactly.
emulate. Like, you know,
You
you
finish high
have
school, but then
stages
there's
of
more.
life. Yeah, you have stages of life. Like you finish school, and then you maybe go and get a job. Maybe you go to college, and that's a new step that brings a lot more uncertainty in your life. And there's a lot more after that. Like, if you do go to college, what do you do after that? You get a job. Well, that's a whole new thing. Do you get a spouse? Do you have kids? If you have kids, do you have grandkids? There's a lot, and that's why I think it really Click to 10 really tries to emulate that to great effect, I do think. But here in part 4, this is where a lot of your like 10 times stuff gets a backseat for a while.
A lot
It
of this is like starting school too.
mhm.
Like this is taking your first big step.
Yeah, I mean, like, this is 4 representing 4 years old, where you do make that first big step into school, like, and this is where the game really starts going. Once again,
Hmm.
just like real life, this is where a lot of the big stuff happens.
And it
And
gives a lot of answers from specifically two,
uh-huh.
2 times 2, 2 squared, 2 plus 2.
Yeah,
It's all
exactly.
4. It's
Uh-huh.
all 4.
Yeah.
And I think symbolically it's there too. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
from what you saw in part 2, everything's answered in part 4.
Absolutely. I mean, like I said, all the foreshadowing that's brought up in part 2 and 3 especially it really comes to fruition in part 4.
Most definitely.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, but here is like I just said it, like, it's where the game really gets going, just like how your life really starts to get going. Like, as I said, this
Mhm.
is where most people start to form memories is at age 4, and
It's
that's
3 or 4. It's definitely 3 or 4.
hmm but I feel like by 4 that's when it happens for most people.
I've heard the term somewhere. I think it's like gaining consciousness.
Yeah, something like that.
I think it's what it's called.
hmm
I don't know if that's just like a throwaway term I've heard before, or if it's the official one. I'm actually going to Google it real quick.
Yeah, but I mean, either way, it's like this is when that starts to happen, and this is when these you know one times numbers really start to shine in the story, because that's when you as a person really starts to come into your own.
Okay, so it's self consciousness. It's when you become self conscious.
hmm
So there's actually 5 stages, which I think is perfectly shown in this. I'm actually reading on it now. I never actually looked at the psychological point of it.
Mm, did you?
So you have 5 stages of the developmental consciousness.
Okay.
You have level 0, the prologue, which is confusion. Level 1, differentiation. Level 2, situation. Level 3, identification. Level 4, permanence. And level 5, which I think you can get into now, if you want
Yeah.
to throw that on screen,
Yeah. Let's go into it.
which is self consciousness, which is it's really shown here. Like,
hmm
level 4 not only was just like incredible, like it tied up everything, but was also that next step into that new question, which is self consciousness, or 5,
hmm
level 5.
Oh yeah,
It was
absolutely,
incredible in that. I mean,
absolutely.
if you look on screen right there, I mean, it's just you can understand. Like, so I'm reading this from Wikipedia right now. It shows how a person, it's showing the development of the self-consciousness, and they can understand they're in the mind of others,
Yeah.
how they're seen in a public standpoint. It's all that in one part, and it's really inspiring, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really good. I don't know how I've never thought about looking into that, but that's another good thing to love about this game. Honestly, is how it gets into all of that.
It's so in depth.
Yeah, I know. It's like it's very abstract, as I said, but like if you're willing to go deeper, there's so much there. And like now we're in part 5, which is the middle. And what does that mean for, the relation with life? I mean,
Well,
if we think about it,
like you said, with 1 and 10, you can do 5 and 50. It's your midlife.
yeah, obviously, 5 is a very round number.
It rounds up.
Yeah. And
Well,
like if we look at,
actually, I mean, depending on certain mathematicians and what field you're in,
oh, who
depending on the
cares?
number after
Who
the 5
cares?
is where it rounds up or down. But it rounds up.
Who cares? But
It rounds
anyways,
up.
be at 5. I mean, if we look at a 5-year-old person, I mean, at that point, you've really have become your own person. You've gained experience, and that's what part 5 is really all about, is experience. Because even if we look at the 10 times version, that's 50. 50 years old is what many would consider to be midlife. And when you're middle aged, you do have a lot of experience. And I feel like, this is really, it's the midpoint in a lot of ways, like I said. But I feel like this is also the maximum of, like, the happiness in the game. Because going forward, you know, there's happiness, of course. It's usually a very positive game, but I feel like going forward, there's also a lot of like bittersweetness to it as well.
Dude, especially when they start killing off characters.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Or is that only in the times 10 DLC where your 50 and 60s come in?
No, that's the unofficial spinoffs.
Oh, my bad, my bad.
Yeah, we're just talking.
I didn't know that was in Click to 16 in the high school arc.
Yeah, this is we're just talking the canon, okay? We're just talking the canon.
Okay.
But yeah, like part five, it, part five is really the last part where you have not only like the childhood innocence, but also like the contentness with life that you would have if you're 50. I feel like from here there is a bit of sorrow that's included in it. Part 5 is the
Hmm.
last fully positive part, I would say.
Yeah, because I mean, yeah, I see that every part after it,
Hmm.
it's kind of, especially the next one, dude.
Yeah.
Next one is where it fully brings, and honestly, you can pull it up now and be honest.
I mean, honestly, I would say there's a lot in part 6, but I'd say that part 7 is more so like the really heavy hitting emotional beats.
Yeah. So if you want to go on to six
Yeah,
here,
if we go to part 6, this is where it really
dude,
starts though.
this builds up a lot of like like not necessarily horror, but it gets like your anxiety,
Existentialism.
your
Yeah.
yeah, like it starts it's building up to something, and
That's
it doesn't
definitely
really
what
explain.
the latter half of this game is about is existentialism.
And I don't want to spoil what happens in part seven. You
Hmm.
might be
We're gonna
able to
get
like
there. Yeah, we're gonna
part
get
six
there.
foreshadows for sure. It's probably you could probably tell from part six right now what's going to happen in part seven, because it honestly when I first read it I did like kind of picked up on it
Mm.
towards the end of six. Like I did pick up on it, and I was like, oh, well, they're going to kill off that character, but it it was crazy.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
the reveal in the later chapters are just crazy.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, we're gonna get into that when we get to 7.
Yeah,
But
because that's when the big reveal is.
but for right
But
now,
six builds
si-
it up. Yeah, it builds.
6
It's a
is
good build
another
up.
big foreshadowing. For it gets a lot of
Yes,
build up,
yes.
and that's one thing you'll notice about all the multiples of threes. 3, 6, and 9 are all like build up parts. They're all building up into the big stuff that happens in 4, 7, and 10.
And another thing is even in the non canons, when you look at 12, that
Yeah.
one was huge. Like for a non canon, that one was actually really good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm usually I don't like the non-canon stuff that much, but I will admit that I did like 12. 12 was pretty good.
12, 12 actually brought a tear in my eye.
Yeah, 12 was pretty good.
Like you see my Kaido face, that had a tear.
Yeah,
It was crazy.
true. That because that's Winter in real life. That's what he looks like.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, like 6. 6 is just a lot of build up because I mean, yeah, this is I mean, looking at like the representation, if we're going to 6 years old now, 6 years old is when you start getting into like grade school, and that's a big step in your life that brings a lot of uncertainty. And if you're 60, you're starting to get up there in age, and when you start to get older, there's a lot of stuff that happens in your life which is not fun, and that's a lot of what it gets to in part 7, which is what I'd say is probably the most heartbreaking part of the game because
Yeah, this is actually where Lucas Graham got his inspiration for his song.
because I mean, this is where you, the protagonist, this is where you as a 7-year-old starts to get bullied, and this is where you as a 70-year-old loses your wife. But at the end of the day, like the whole theme is that as terrible as it is and as much as it sucks, you have to keep going.
Oh my god, we're on seven already?
Yeah.
Are you not gonna touch up the part where it reveals 789?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing too.
Like, did
is
you not? Are you not going to touch up on that at all?
oh
Like that
no,
reveal was insane.
I was getting to that. Yeah, I was getting to that too.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I didn't mean to take that away from you.
But yeah,
Like that reveal was crazy.
and that's the thing. 789. Like that's a very sinister part of it too. And that the game uses that to good effect because 7, 8 and 9 are where a lot of like the bad stuff happens. Like where a lot of like the sorrowful events of the game happen. Like as I said, like you get bullied and your wife dies. Like that's a lot to go through, but it's in, the game makes it a point to tell you that you need to keep going because life isn't going to stop for you. You got to move along with
Even if
it.
7 eats 9.
Yeah. Even if 7 eats 9, you can still keep counting. And if we go on to 8, I mean, 8 is. 8's. I'd say that 7 is like the emotional climax of the story, but 8's a close second. Because, I mean, like.
I mean, the touch up on 3.
Yeah, I mean, like, the callbacks to part 3.
Well, it call. Sorry, not touch up. Callback. Yeah, it calls back to 3, and it shows you it shows you it builds up on the sinisterness of 7
Mm hmm.
while at the same time calling back to 3, which is pretty impressive.
Mm hmm. I mean, like, even then, like, at this point, there's less of a difference between the ages, too. Like, what's so different between a 7-year-old and an 8-year-old? And what's so different from a 70-year-old and an 80-year-old?
Mm-hmm.
It's like there's becoming less difference in the ages, but I still feel like the game does a good job of making them feel distinct. Because especially like on the 80-year-old side, I mean like this you know that you're in the end game now, just like you know that you're towards the end of your life. And that's where it really this a part 8 is where that really hits you is that
Mm-hmm.
it's about to come to an end. There's not much left that you need to wrap up what you want to do before you run out of time. And I feel like that carries over very well into part 9, which I suppose we'll just get into right now.
So I actually want to have the opening words of part 9 here, dude. Okay, so the whole thing with this chapter, like, yes, it touches up on the whole 7, 8, 9 factor,
Mm-hmm.
but oh my god, like we know, like I don't know why it doesn't think it keeps trying to remind you that 7, 8, 9,
Mm-hmm.
but it acts like we don't remember. Like it's repetitive.
Mm-hmm.
It's 7, 8, 9, 7, 8, 9, and it's supposed to make you feel like the remorse and regret for 7.
Mm-hmm.
But oh my god, it's just ridiculous. Like I don't like what they did with this chapter. I'm gonna be honest. I
I
really
can
don't.
understand the frustration with it, but the whole thing is that it's about like these last few parts especially are about dementia. You know, as a 90-year-old, that becomes a factor, and that's why it keeps hammering it in because this 90-year-old with dementia is struggling and trying their best to remember because you know in the game it's 789
Yeah,
but
I totally get that, but I feel like I wish it was just more narratively implied.
mhm
Because I mean, everyone, because like that was shown in like the author FAQ or the Q&A, sorry.
mhm
That was like because he explained that in the Q&A he did after like what it was like a year after the series release
Something like
was
that.
released. Yeah, he said that in the Q&A and came out about it explicitly, but like I wish it was just more in the narrative.
I mean,
Because
I can
you got to
understand
remember
that.
like not everyone is into like not everyone gets really into it. So like it's only if you get really into it you'll understand that oh it's supposed to represent dementia. You know,
Yeah,
like it's to a casual reader, it's just repetitive and it's boring.
I mean, I can understand that,
And
but
it's really
this game
underwhelming
as a
because from a
whole,
numbers standpoint, 9 is my favorite number.
uh,
So like I had really high hopes for this. I mean, you just got off of the like the crazy like 7 and 8 saga,
mhm,
and then you're throwing 9 that just hammers that in. So like
mhm,
as someone who's just reading it, you know, for the first time, it's just underwhelming.
mhm.
And
I
it's
mean,
only when you go dig deeper like that is when you can really appreciate it.
mhm.
But it's just not because even if you're reading it deeply, it's not in the narrative.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand that it's not really a casual, friendly experience, but this game as a whole is very abstract. So I do think that it's kind of to be expected.
Oh, definitely. But I feel like I know that was the intention of it, but if because he wouldn't have outright said anything about it if he knew it wasn't like obvious, you know.
Yeah,
Like a lot of the things is that I mean he obviously didn't include anything like the reference with 3 and 8, you know, like that was found by, you know, readers who dug deeper.
uh huh.
But like he outright had to say that about what 9 was about, and that kind of just takes away from it.
I guess. I mean, I still think that it's not that bad. I like it, but we can agree to disagree.
Oh yeah, it's definitely no. I don't hate it. Like
Uh
I
huh.
like it, especially with that knowledge. But I'm just saying, from a casual standpoint, it's not.
Yeah, I
It's
can understand that,
underwhelming.
but I feel like even if that part does get a little frustrating, I feel like the rest of the content in Part 9 works a lot better because I mean, like I said that 7 is like an emotional climax of the story, but I mean, low key, I think that 9 might beat it out.
And it does like hook you in with a lot of the remorse and like agony and regret.
I mean,
It
as I
really
said, this is
does.
like a foreshadowing chapter, so it doesn't totally pay off until 10, but I like what it sets up.
It picks up it like hooks you onto the emotional beats. Like it
Hmm.
sets it up.
Yeah, cause do you remember what the whole thing with Part 9 is? Cause
Give me a refresher.
yeah, so it's it caps off the 7, 8, 9 metaphor because
Oh yeah, the 789 saga. Yeah.
yeah, because if you remember, I mean, the whole big thing in Part 7 was that your wife died, and 8 is where you are dealing with like the the stages of grief over your wife's
Well,
death.
was it so the wife was like really late in the part 7, right?
I think so, yeah, I think so. But anyways, yeah, 8's about like dealing with like the grief with it. And 9 is like you're starting to get dementia and you're still dealing with the grief. But
Hmm.
like, and that's, we'll get to that when we get to part 10, but that's how that's how it works in the metaphor is if we look closer into the metaphor of 7, 8, 9, if we look into what's actually going on. So in 7, 8, 9, obviously 7, the number 7, is eating the number 9. I mean, that's what it's saying. But if we look at that metaphorically and relate it to the parts in the game, we have 7 Seven is seen as like the antagonist in this scenario, the evil, the villain. And eight, eight is seen as like the action that seven is doing. I mean, eight is past tense of eat, which is an action, of course. So, eight is like a result of seven, so to speak. And nine is like the victim of seven's doing. And if we look at that, if we frame it to parts 7 through 9 of the game, we have 7, which is when your wife dies. That is the catalyst for everything that happens in 8 and 9. 8 is like the fallout, the action of 7. And that's when you're going through all the grief. And 9 is the victim, because after so many years of grieving over your wife, you've lost all that time, and you're running out of time to really move on and remember all the good times that you had with your wife. The lost time in part 9 is the victim. And that's why I think that 9 is such an amazing emotional beat, and I love the symbolism with 7, 8, 9.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just think it's amazing, and of course, all of this pays off in part 10.
No, it just ends.
And
I
if you
forgot about that part.
noticed, yeah, but that's important. Yeah, I mean, if you noticed, you could see 10 for a brief moment, because
I
10,
didn't have enough time to notice.
yes, but you can see 10 for a brief moment. And if you notice, 10 is 10 part 10, although it is short, it's like it's the finale, of course. And it's where, after all of the pain and sorrow of parts 7 through 9, you are finally able to move on from your wife's death. But there is like a tragedy to it, because the reason that you can only see 10 for a split second is because you die. The game ends, which represents
Mm-hmm.
death. You make it to 100 and then you die. So it leaves off on a very bittersweet note in that sense. And I really like it for that. I think it's a wonderful ending. And it's why I love this game so much.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, do you have any closing thoughts?
No, I think you nailed it pretty well. I love it. It was a great story.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
I wish I was able to reread it from a completely clear state of mind.
Oh, absolutely. Me
Great.
too. It's one of those once in a lifetime games that you really wish you could just read again without any knowledge of it, because it's that good. You know, and like all of the unofficial sequels and all that exist, of course, they're not that good, most of them. And even then, they're not canon or anything, and they none of them really captured the spirit of the original Click to 10. And it's not like that
Mhm.
game really needed a sequel anyway.
Right.
Like, I don't know, I just feel like there's no really natural way to continue what Click to 10 does. I feel like it wraps up perfectly in such a
Well,
way that you can't
there
really
is
extend it.
there is no sequel. They're just doing a remake.
Yeah, I'm talking about the unofficial ones.
Oh well, those are alt universes now.
Yeah, but still, like,
Like those go into
I'm
the
just
alt
saying people have
timelines.
tried to create sequels, and I feel like none of them really land.
Dude,
the
I'm
same
just
way.
saying the 13's like life serum shit they tried doing was
Whack,
stupid.
whack,
That was
whack.
just dumb.
I mean, as I said, like 12 was all right, but that's the only one I'd recommend, honestly.
Yeah, it's always okay.
And even then, like, it's only if you want to. You're perfectly fine just doing click to 10. But yeah, I feel like that's a good place to leave it off.
Yeah, I
Definitely
think
go and try the game for yourself. It's a fantastic experience, even though we've spoiled all of it already, but still, go
yeah.
give it a read.